So now let's talk about the standard equation of hyperbola, and we consider in this lesson that the center of the hyperbola is at the origin. In this case, we have two equations we need to be familiar with. First one, we have x squared over a squared minus y squared over b squared equal to 1. And the other one, we have y squared over a squared minus x squared over b squared equal to 1. So as what I've shown you earlier sa video, pag ang positive is naa siya sa variable x, then our transverse axis would be along x, or it means pahigda, horizontal. Kung horizontal ang ato ang transverse axis, then our hyperbola now will be opening to the left and to the right. Because kung asa dapit ang or kung unsa ang porma ng ato ang transverse axis, dito po nato makit-an si focus o si vertex. Okay, mo nang to the left, to the right ang opening sa ato ang hyperbola. So kung ang positive pod nato is naa sa variable y, then our transverse axis would be along y, or patindog o vertical. So kung vertical ang ato ang transverse axis, our hyperbola now would be opening upward, opening downward. Okay, again, kay kung asa dapit si transverse axis, dito po nato makit-an si focus o si vertex. Now try to observe this graph. So almost the same lang pod ang mga parts nga atong makita sa hyperbola of ellipse. We have the foci and the vertices. So in this part natay transverse axis, we have the conjugate axis na ako na siyang na-discuss earlier. We also have what we call the asymptote. Asymptote will serve as guide how wide our hyperbola. Unsa ka curve o unsa ka dako ang ato ang hyperbola. So this asymptote is a line nga mag-intersect siya towards the center. So later on akong ipakita unsaon ni siya pag-graph, but before that, let's have this, how to identify the foci, the vertices, and the asymptote in terms of the equation. So for this point, we have the foci. Remember, ng atong standard, ato ang positive or the transverse axis is along x. It means magbutang ta sa value ng c dito sa x. So we have negative c0 and c0. Vertices pod dito gyapon along x magbutang. Okay, we have negative a 0 and a 0. Pag-abot sa asymptote, try to natay duha ka consideration. So in this case, ang atong gamiton na asymptote is y equal to b over a x and y equal to negative b over a x. Pasabot kani siya nga line. Ang equation ani nga line is y equal to b over ax, og kani nga line, ang equation ani nga line is negative b over ax. Okay, so medyo dali ra pag memorize kani nga equation, pero later on pag ang center ng hyperbola wala na siya sa origin, medyo ako lang ipakita sa inyo sa pag-identify. But before that, try to observe nga from the center to the vertex, which is a distance, and the center to the focus, which is c distance, mas longer ang distance ni c kaysa kay a. That's why sa pag-identify nato sa value ni c, we have c squared equal to a squared plus b squared, or c is equal to the square root of a squared plus b squared. Unlike sa ellipse, try to remember nga ang pag-identify nato sa value ni c, we have c is equal to the square root of a squared minus b squared. So kinahanglan ni nato siya differentiate basig maglibog mo sa equation how to identify the value of C. So kung atog na pong adtuon sa ikaduha nga equation, ang positive na po nato along y, it means transverse axis patindog or along y. So our foci now, ang C nga value dito po nato ibutang sa y. Vertices dito gyapon sa y ang value ni A. And now the asymptote would be A over B x and negative A over B x. Means mao ni siya ang atuang asymptote. Kani siya ang atuang asymptote. And our graph will be like this, opening upward, opening downward. Also, na ako gusto emphasize sa definition ng atuang hyperbola. Kung naatay hyperbola and any point ng hyperbola, this distance plus this distance would be equal to 2a. And any point kani siya is always equal to this distance. The distance QF, kung natay point nga itong i-consider sa hyperbola, this distance to the focus plus kani nga distance is equal lang siya sa kani nga distance towards this distance. Okay? Anyways, na-discuss na po na siya earlier sa, o makita po na niyo sa module, na-discuss po na siya atong video introduction about the definition of hyperbola. Ako lang siyang gi-emphasize. Okay? So, para mas masabdan nato ni hyperbola nga definition in the standard equation of the hyperbola, let's have the example.